that second chance for a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction, oh, beautiful release. Memories seep from my veins, empty, weightless, and maybe I'll find some peace tonight in the arms of the angel. Fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. You're in the arms of the angel. May you find some comfort here. So tired of the straight line, and everywhere you turn, there's vultures and thieves at your back. The storm keeps on twisting. Keep on building the lies that you make up for all that you lack. It don't make no difference. Escape one last time. It's easier to believe in this sweet madness, all this glorious sadness that brings me to my knees. In the arms of the angel, fly away from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. In the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here. In the arms of the angel, may you find some comfort here.
Welcome, everybody. We are here today to honour the life and to mourn the death of Edward John Williams. John's death has brought us together, but it is his life that we are here to remember. And we're also here to farewell John, to recall the life of a man who lived and died his way. John, as you know, didn't subscribe to the philosophy of winning friends and influencing people. So it's great to see so many people have joined us here today. We are here to acknowledge that John's fleeting presence has had a lasting impact on all of your lives, or you would not be here. And when someone dies who you have shared your life with, they aren't just missing from the life that you had, they are also missing from the life that is yet to come. And from today, your world will be a different place as you recognise that there is now a big John-shaped void. And I'm sure, as you will know, it's going to be a rather large void, and a void that is going to be hard to fill. And in his own words, from now on, I'm going to be a little bit hard to get in contact with. I'm just going to do. I really enjoyed my meetings and my phone calls with John. He was witty and quick thinking, incredibly intelligent and down to earth. At first, I thought he was just very eccentric, but soon I realised it was just because he was so passionate about what he was telling me, the story of his life. Although getting him to stay on topic and not get sidetracked was the hardest challenge I think I had to face when talking with John. He constantly went off on one tangent or another, only to somehow swing it back around at the final end to give me the story. So please sit back and enjoy the ride as I relate some of these stories to you now. I'm also then, once I've had a little chance to talk, get up. Carolyn, his daughter, will get up, and his granddaughter Emma, followed by Craig. But what better way than to start than with the man himself? Teresa was able to capture a few short videos of John. He originally wanted to do the entire eulogy, but unfortunately, we ran out of time. Now, John, unfortunately, towards the end was getting very tired, so I have edited these. I also edited them because, again, he kept getting sidetracked. So hopefully this is the shorter, abridged version for you all. So thank you, Bernie.
As you all know, my full name, or you should know, is Edward John Williams, but I've been known as John since birth. It's not a choice of mine, it was a choice of my father. And in those days, just after the war, people had a great fear of the Jewish people, and some even hated them. And I never get to know where my dad got his dislike of the Jewish people from. But when they were working out my name, they were going to call me John Edward Williams. And Dad realised that the initials would spell Jew and that I'd probably have trouble with those initials. And so that's how I came to be known as John, because that was Dad's plan. And rather than initial me John Edward Williams, he called me Edward John Williams and still called me John from birth. Now let's got that out of the way in case anybody is still confused. It's not a deletion of my own choosing, if that's a proper phrase. It all had to do with Mum and Dad when I was born. And I've answered to both Edward and John, Edward John and Edward at different times. I answer to anything. If anything's gone wrong, where was John Williams at the time, you know? So it's always been John. When Barry was born, a glorious 3 years later in 1951, Dad put in the newspaper clipping that finally a mate for John. I always loved you as Dad planned as a mate for me. And unfortunately, Barry and I weren't very good mates. You have made me laugh at times, and other times you made me cry, which I suppose is all about life. And he often asks me nowadays why I didn't walk home with scouts from him. And I said, I don't think that you was in the scouts with me. We did. The reason I didn't walk you home from school and Cubs is because you had friends of your own age group who you used to walk with. And I thought at the time that I was a fine young man, and I thought of you as a young child. And I didn't enjoy spending time with children. I have a match sometimes, but I didn't walk home with him because he had friends of his own age group. 3 years of a young boy is a big age. You've only got to look at some of the costumes Mum and Dad got me to dress up in for probably concerts with the Scouts, that sort of thing. But why didn't I walk home with Barry, walking to and from school? I think I did originally. I thought I was a young man, and I was still a young boy. And I thought Barry as a child, and I didn't mix with children much. I chose to mix with people of older age and my own age group. I had many good friends. Wayne McDonald, his brother Gary McDonald, and several Roman Catholic boys from the Maribyrnong area. He was a scoutmaster, worked for the Commonwealth government at the ammunition factory. Not the ammunition factory, sorry, Barry worked there. He worked at the ordnance factory in Maribyrnong, and they lived on the premises there, and they were mainly Irish imports. And the scoutmaster Terry O'Brien, he did run a very good scout group, and Kerry knew every dirty ditty and joke in the book, and we used to sing them when we go hiking. Unfortunately, I can't remember any of them these days, and I couldn't remember any of them then either. But whilst there was that boyhood thing involved in it, and I've since heard that Terry has died, because Barry kept asking me why I didn't walk him home from Scouts, is we used to go to the pub after being at Scouts and couldn't take my brother to the pub. Anyhow, we used to sing. The bloke would play on the piano. We would sing songs like Danny Boy and mainly Irish songs, and what's that? The lady from not a dirty song. It's very popular in the day. I can't think of the words, but something Bay, not Botany Bay, it was from where they were from. I'd like to say that I want everybody to love everybody, and not there be a crossword between them ever, and that we're all family no matter what part or division of the family that we come from.
So that was John. Edward John Williams was born on the 6th of August 1948 to parents Thomas Edward and Mavis Jean Williams in Kensington, Victoria. He was the first of two children with a younger brother, Barry, born in 1951. His childhood was disciplinary. His dad was strong and tough. His father had grown up in the country near Cobden and fought in World War II. But when John was born, they had moved into Carlton, as this offered better opportunities for work. The area at the time had an influx of refugees from Europe, and so there was a lot of unscrupulous landlords trying to take advantage of this. But John's dad stood for none of this, and it actually helped many of the new migrants get a fairer deal. Apparently, John's dad was also a bit of a character, which is probably where John got it from. He was not allowed to swear at home and hated swearing throughout his life. And he put this down to the fact that his grandmother apparently swore like a trooper. And he could never understand in conversations that he had with his then wife Glenda why she swore so much at home, and yet every Sunday she was sitting up there in the front row of the Presbyterian church. His favourite memories, though, of his childhood were the holidays that he spent in the country at his Auntie Kathy's house in Cobden or his grandma's in Wedderburn. He loved it up on the farm, waking up to home-cooked breakfasts of eggs and bacon, grilled tomato, sausages and mushrooms, before he would go out and chase the lambs around the paddock or go horse riding or head down to the river for a good day of fishing. But John was always older than his years, and he mentioned that himself, preferring often the company of adults than to have conversations with other children. He was always a very bright child and was born with a very good brain, although it often seemed like his brain worked at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it was like a sponge, and he had a thirst for knowledge from a very young age. Unfortunately, though, he wasn't one for studying or the formality of school. So he learnt most of what he most of his learning was gained through his own reading. He had wanted to go to university, but failed his exams in fifth form. So the decision was made that he should leave school and get a trade. In 1966, he got a job as a motor mechanic to the Department of Civil Aviation. But unfortunately for John, it wasn't a good fit for either of them, and they soon parted ways. He then was lucky enough to get a job in a garage, and it was there in 1968 that he met Glenda at a cafe, and soon after they started dating. It was a bit of a tumultuous relationship. One night, Glenda actually hit him with her handbag after accepting a cup of tea from another girl in the cafe. But it was love, and they soon became engaged. She was a truly pretty girl, and he loved her dearly. They married in 1969 when John and Glenda were 21. And before they knew it, they had 3 small children, Carolyn, born in 1970, John in 1973, and Teresa in 1974. He tried his best to make the marriage work and had every intention to do this. But this was in the times where there was not a lot of support for young mothers, and Glenda struggled with motherhood. And the decision to put the children into foster care at an early age was not one that John agreed to. When the DHS came to the house and took the children when Carolyn was about 4, John 2, and Teresa about 6 months old, he was devastated. and this also contributed in the family unit breakdown. Sadly, it was also the time when dads in the early 1970s were unable to manage this in any other way. And at the time, he had to spend his days working, so he had no choice but to agree to the removal of his children. Eventually, though, he did get them back with the support of family and friends, with the hope that they could all be together again as a family. He also found some help from the church, but unfortunately, it was actually after church one day where he had taken the children that he came home to find that Glenda had left for good. So it became a constant struggle for him to support the children as a single parent, and they ended up in foster care again and again throughout their childhoods. He and the children battled through these times of adversity, and it took a colossal toll on their interactions with each other. For John was one of those people who always tried to do good things for people. He was always the one who would stop and help someone on the side of the road. With that, he was travelling home one night and there was a man in the middle of the road with blood all over him. Teresa thought she was about 6 when this happened. And so they stopped, but the man would not go to hospital. So John dressed his wounds as best as possible. And the man, unfortunately, was a little bit slow and had been an easy target for someone to attack him. But they managed to get his address and returned him to his parents' house. John had always been a left-winger and joined the unions at a young age. He started his working career as a mechanic, moving into working as a line manager at GM Holden, and it was here that he discovered a passion for politics and for the unions. He may have known his limitations, but that didn't stop him from pushing it to the edge of his abilities. In 1970, he had the urge to become a union secretary for the Motor Transport Union, but it was not to be, as he only managed to achieve about 5% of the votes. So instead, he was elected as a shop steward, and he thought he did it pretty well. He was proud to stand up for the workers and for what they believed would help. He tried to help people to get a fairer deal and better working conditions. He had a few wins and a few losses, but he made a great many friends in the union movement. And they're going to talk a little bit more later about his contribution after Emma speaks today. He was surprised, though, through his working career, where he met a few nasty and evil people. But what he found is he never met too many greedy people. There were times when he would get tossed a few grains of wisdom from his bosses. But John, unfortunately, had still kind of an old school mentality that sometimes clashed with others. And we live in a world of changing times where lack of acceptance is not tolerated, and where it got to the point where his beliefs and those of the unions started to go into two different directions. And he was then smart enough to know it was time to resign. When John's health declined, he moved to Creswick in about 2009, 2010. His brother Barry helped support him and bought the house in Luton Street. And there he was able to live independently. And he had a couple of other jobs, teaching people how to drive and driving a taxi. But John was a hoarder, and the whole house was filled with rubbish and stuff he would buy and bring home. Unfortunately, this even got worse when he learned how to shop online, when he could no longer get around so easily. Most of the items that the kids found when they were cleaning up his house hadn't even been opened. but he would never allow anyone to touch anything until recently. And the girls even found items like brand new sewing machines still in its box. And I thought this was a strange item, but then the girls told me that apparently John would help sew the ballet costumes when they were little. But then they also found boxes and boxes of stuff. There was ice cream sticks, foil containers filled with ashes from his cigarettes, and hundreds of little diabetes testing sticks. When they asked him what he was going to do with those, he said he was going to make something out of them. And those little diabetes sticks contain a minuscule dot of gold on each end. So they're definitely worth keeping. So if anyone needs any, you know where to go. Barry had also helped keep with the upkeep. He was mowing the lawn at the front one day, and then John had a brilliant idea. He thought it would be easier just to bring home some sheep. So Norma and Corey were his new friends. They were allowed to live in the backyard as it was a big yard, and he tried on one day to actually put a collar on the ram and take it for a walk. But the ram actually got the better of him and pushed him right over, which goes to show how strong the ram was, as John would not have been light. But when they got too much for him, Caroline lied to John, telling him that they had been stolen when they disappeared. But she did fess up a couple of days later, saying that she had to take them to a shelter. But it was a no-kill shelter, so hopefully they lived a long and happy life. It was also when he nearly burnt the house down, when he left a cigarette alight on the couch arm. Thankfully, it never caught alight and it only smouldered, but it caused a 20-centimetre sort of round hole on the couch arm. But he decided this was definitely an advantage, as it was the perfect size hole to hold either an ashtray or to be a drink holder. He was always one to turn the situation around and find the good in it. So now I'd like to pass to Caroline.
Firstly, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming today. I'm definitely my father's daughter, and he passed on a lot of traits to me. Being very passionate about causes is one thing that I have in my life. Also, my love of cars. As most of you who know me know that I love my V8s. I've become a motor mechanic, also doing spray painting and panel beating in my younger years. Anyway, just before I do my eulogy, I remember one day I had to go pick Dad up from the hospital, and I just recently bought my dream car, which was my VFSS Commodore. I remember pulling up to the hospital and Dad going to me, "This is way too big a car for a little girl like you to drive." Anyway, I made sure he got a hell of a ride home, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. Anyway, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today to celebrate the life of our father. I'd also like to thank my sister Teresa. Over the past few weeks, times have been very challenging. But me, Dad and Teresa, the three musketeers right to the end. We're all here today because in some way you have touched our father's lives, and we hope that in some way our father has touched your life. Personally, for me and my dad, we locked horns on many occasions. Both being stubborn, it never usually ended well. But over the last 7 to 8 years, we found a common ground where he became the pain in the ass and I became the authoritarian. And through that, there was a common ground of love and respect. I was still his rebel daughter, but that was okay. Teresa always played the good cop. And as a sister, I'm so proud of her endless devotion to ensure our father was always receiving the highest quality of care. The last 7 to 8 years of Dad's life were challenging. Dad wanted his independence and freedom to live how he wanted. And although we wanted him to get as much help as possible, we had to respect his decisions. As Alicia mentioned, our childhood wasn't always rainbows and roses. And through unforeseen circumstances, Johnny, Teresa and I were placed in foster care. But Dad, as always, was in our corner fighting for us and what he saw as an unjust system. But regardless, through it all, he was still Dad. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the good stuff. There is no doubt our dad was a character. And right to the very end, his sharp wit shined through. I mean, how often do you hear someone sing the Chattanooga Choo Choo 15 minutes before passing away? And his amazing storytelling. I won't give too much away, but his memories from his childhood with his mum and dad and brother Barry and family were heard many times over in his final weeks. We also heard many union stories, which was a very, very big part of Dad's life and gave him great pride to stand beside the people that he dealt with through the unions. I do remember on various occasions being a very young child standing beside my dad at picket lines. And I think this is where I found my passion for fighting for what's fair and just, not just for work colleagues, but for everyone. And that's all Dad wanted in life, was to make sure that everyone had a just and fair life. Wages, family life, whatever it was, Dad just wanted fairness and equality for everyone. I remember when I was younger, maybe in the 80s, Dad actually staged a hunger strike on the steps of Parliament House. Not too sure how it ended, but I'm sure he got hungry pretty quick. I could be here all day, but I got strict orders from Dad to thank several people who Dad saw as extended family. And Teresa and I would like to thank you too. To his neighbours, Harvey and Beck, Brett and Marinda, Ross, Sharon, Mark and Megan. Thank you for everything that you've done for Dad, the times you've had to go pick him up off the floor when he couldn't get back into bed, for even small things like going to get him a drink when he couldn't get up to the kitchen to go get a drink. And finally, a person who played a very big part in his life, and that lady is sitting up the back to the right, and that is Anne, his carer. The first day when Anne turned up to look after Dad, there was a bit of a kerfuffle on whether she'd stay or not, because Dad was adamant he was not having anyone in his house cleaning or doing anything. Just wasn't happening. Anyway, so the deal was, you can stay for this shift. We'll see how we go. And if you like me after it and I like you, you can stay. So the shift passed and Dad said, "So, you coming back?" And Anne shyly said, "Yep." And since then, it was Anne and Dad against the world. He loved her meals. Of course, she could never get him out of bed to change the bed. That had to be down to me. When I went there, I had to sort of kick him out and get it done. And Dad said for me to tell you today that he thanks you very much for your care and friendship, and he's glad that you stuck around. If you ask my father what he was most proud of, he would without a doubt say his children and grandchildren who brought him his greatest joy. He wasn't one to show affection, but we had the best and biggest hugs in the last few weeks, and also given life advice. In the end, by his own admittance, Dad wishes he had have gone into care earlier, and that he let his stubbornness, pride and fear of handing his life into the hands of others. And we wish he had have gone earlier too. He loved it in the nursing home. He said the tucker was quite good and the staff were wonderful at the John Curtin nursing home. Moving forward, we will miss him terribly. My sister and I still have memories where we pick up the phone, moments where we pick up the phone, followed by the sad realisation that he's not really home. I would like to finish with a poem that resonates with who Dad was as a person. The poem is called Not How Did He Die, but How Did He Live? Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? Not what was his church, nor what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Was he ever ready with words of good cheer to bring back a smile, to banish a tear? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed away. My final words from my sister and I to our dad is, our love for you is eternal. You have left a flame in our hearts that will guide us back to you when we meet again. Love, Carolyn and Teresa. I'd also like to thank Alicia and the people at Very Funerals for bringing Dad's vision of what his final farewell would be to life. And just thank you everyone for being here. I'm so happy for you that you knew my dad, and I hope that he touched the hearts of everyone here. Thank you.
Now John's granddaughter Emma is going to say a few words.
Okay. As many of you know, I'm Emma. I'm one of John's granddaughters. And I thank you all for coming today as we look back on his life and many cherished memories. It doesn't feel real that he isn't here with us anymore, but he will always remain in our hearts. Granddad was a loving son, brother, dad, and granddad and friend. I know Granddad was not only an inspiration to me, but so many of you here as well. Granddad, you were so full of life and always had a smile on your face, even through the toughest of times. Over the past few years, I got to know Granddad more and spend more time with him. He was such an inspirational and unique man. He was full of stories and looking back on his life and sharing his precious memories from a child up until now. While you are no longer here with us, I will always cherish the very last conversation we had. He said to me, "Forever and a day, Emma, I will love you always. May you rest peacefully without suffering and reunite with my dad, Johnny, and fly high, my angels." Rest in peace.
Craig from the AMW. I get it mixed up every time.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I knew John, I think I first met him in the early 80s. We used to have what was called branch meetings, and we were in the Essendon branch, and he come along to the meeting, made an instant impact, upset everyone, you know what I mean? He was quite a shit stirrer. But John was quite a rebel. And I'm not going to, not too many ex-coppers here, but it'd be fair to say that he wasn't a great fan of coppers. In fact, I can remember I finished up secretary of the union and John was a delegate for many years. John had a problem, I think it was sleep apnea. He didn't like getting out of bed early in the morning. He got the sack a couple of times. We had to get him his job back. So the deal was we get him on afternoon shift because he had no problem getting into work in the afternoon shift. But he liked to come into the trades hall on Thursdays when we'd have the debate. Anyway, they made this decision that they were going to ask the coppers to become affiliated with all the other unions. I thought there would have been an uproar. There'd been a deal done. And he went like this. He said, "We're not going to cop this." So I said, "John, you get up and speak, buddy. You can speak on behalf of the union." Well, he then got up and gave a précis of every misfit. And he went on and on about the coppers for about half an hour. They were all going off their heads. Be fair to say that he questioned their parentage and a number of other issues. In the end, the resolution got up, but John was pretty happy. And they came over and said, "Don't let him speak again, will you?" Equally, we went up to Canberra one time for a rally, and it was about 40,000 of us went up to protest against the Howard government. And they were bringing in these rotten laws that we have now. They were the forerunners to them. Anyway, it got a little bit out of control. We caught up with our Aboriginal brothers and sisters and finished up, decided we were going to go into Palm. We weren't going to cop just being there. And I just remember it got quite out of hand. It finished up a bit of a riot. A fellow whose name shall remain nameless, he whacked a copper, and the copper turned around with a big truncheon and hit John. He thought it was John. John hadn't hit him. And it was just magnificent the way John done it. John just ducked. The copper hit the National Secretary of the Union, who was no good anyway. And he come over, he goes, Craig, I just got camera whacked by the coppers, mate. He was so happy about it. But look, I'm only telling a couple of stories to be light-hearted, but I'll say this about John. John was a passionate communist. He was a full-on socialist. And I'd drive home from trades all after a couple of drinks, and I wasn't quite as as educated as John. I'm a socialist myself, but John was. We'd argue about, because people all say socialism's good, but it's the argument how you get there where you have all the arguments, especially with all the different factions in the socialists. But John was a quite educated, well thought, rounded fella, and good speaker and good ideas. And the overwhelming thing he had a thirst for justice. He didn't care race, creed, colour. John wanted to help everyone, and he believed the only way we could do that properly was through socialism. And John was very, very passionate about that. And I'm a great believer that when we're all going to go that day, when we all pass away, you turn around and say, what have you done with your life? What contribution have you made? Have you looked after your family? Have you made a contribution to your community? Have you looked after your class? And I think we can say on any sort of any sort of limit or any sort of thing, John made a magnificent contribution. He was a great family man, as he's been thing by his daughters and granddaughter. He was a great person for his community, and he made a great difference to his class. Many, many thousands of workers enjoy many, many things because of people like John Williams and the great work John did. So I just say, we can have the jokes and all that, which I think is always, you want to have a bit of a lighthearted because it's about celebrating the life. But John was a great comrade. I say, Vale John Williams, you're a great man. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who spoke, Carolyn, Emma, and Craig. Throughout their lives, John and his family experienced both good and bad. The children have admitted that they tested John's patience just as much as he tested theirs. And it took a long time for them to be able to come to terms with the connection that they had with him. And it was volatile, but they forgave him. And when in 2016, when he suffered a massive heart attack, and had to have a triple bypass, the family found it so difficult to see him on life support. So it has really only been the last 6 or 7 years that the girls have really been able to accept him back into their lives. And he always did his best. He always tried to be a good provider. He was their dad, and he was what he was. He often admitted he would often speak before putting his mind into gear, and he regrets that he often upset people and hurt their feelings. But I, for one, was grateful to meet John, because it would have been hard to understand his uniqueness if you hadn't met him face to face. And even when his own family described him as an odd fellow who was very eccentric, I was not prepared for the man I met just a few weeks ago. He was larger than life, and I can imagine quite a formidable man in his day, as he was to his final day. He called a spade and not a shovel. You knew where you stood with John. He was straight up and down. He was truly stubborn in his beliefs and his opinions. He spoke his mind, more often than not to his own detriment. He was quick, he was witty, and he never entirely let the truth get in the way of a good story. His last wish had been to donate his body to science, to the Sydney University of Technology, where they could use his body for research. He thought it was such a waste to be buried or cremated. And throughout his life, he had had such a love of learning, and he wanted to know that people could still learn from him. Unfortunately, this was not to be the case, as there were some unforeseen circumstances in the donation. But yet, he had a calm acceptance about his death. His last words to me were, "We all die. We are dying from the day we are born. What we should try and do is make sure we do something good in between. He tried to get that good in. He tried to live his life with purpose. There were things that he did that made people's lives better as he strived to do good for others. There were things he conceded he didn't always get right, and there were some that he did. He would have liked longer, but it was not to be so. There were still some things that he set out to do that he didn't get done. Sometimes he admitted it was easier expressing the feelings to those at a distance when he should have been focusing on rebuilding the relationships a little bit close to home. And that is a regret that he will carry with him. But when the pain finally got too great for him, it was time to go. With his failing health, John made the decision to enter the assisted dying program, a really tough call. You may not agree with this, but for him, it was the only way to go. And I'm sure if he'd had the strength and the time, he would have been able to convince you that he was doing the right thing. He made sure, though, that he had the time to express his love and gratitude to those who were supporting him. He was so blessed to have some beautiful, loving, and helpful women by his side as he commenced his final journey. His daughters, Carolyn and Teresa, and also some of the grandchildren, and his brother Barry was also there. And on Wednesday, the 13th of July, a date he chose, he checked out. Or, in the words of Monty Python, he kicked the bucket. John, you made us laugh, made us cry, and made us crazy. So now we say, thank you for being on this grand adventure that we call life. He gave you the gifts of his love and his friendship, and these gifts are more precious than anything of this world. John, we will never forget you, and we farewell you. But know that with all the love in our hearts, your memory and your love will stay with us forever. So now we have some beautiful photos of John's family and of John that the family have put together for you.
I dreamed I saw Joe here last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says in Salt Lake City, Joe says I am standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I'm dead. Says Joe, but I'm dead. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe. I didn't die, says Joe. I didn't die. And standing there as big as life, and his eyes, says Joe, what they can never kill, went on to organize, went on to organize. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, there workers strike and organize. It's there you'll find your hill. It's there you'll find your hill. I dreamed I saw Joe here last night, alive as you be. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. I never died, says he.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear and state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway. More, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. More, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, laughed and cried. I've had my fill, my share of losing. And now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a mouse? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of the one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way.
took a punt on not closing the curtains, and what happens? The sun comes out just when that was on. So our final reflection is think of John every day. Ask him for guidance and strength to help you along the way. Make him proud. A little part of him will be with you wherever you go. For he has shared so much with you. He loved the people in this world and those closest to him. For his family, they will miss his rather loud shirts and his braces, his signature clothing item. They will not miss him smoking like a chimney, but they will miss his conversations and daily chats. They will not miss the random parcels arriving on the doorstep, most of which remained unopened and unused. They will miss the love he showed to the grandchildren and how they were getting to know each other after many years. They won't miss his rhyming slang and his bad dad jokes. They won't miss his over-the-top rants, but they will miss his love. And now, the final piece of music, a piece of music chosen by John. It's called Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone. He wants you to talk about him now. So please remain and join with the family to have some light refreshments and a glass of Moscato, as this was John's final request.
Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh, honey, though our friendship ceases from now on. And listen, if you can't say anything real nice, it's better not to talk at all, is my advice. We're parting, you go your way, I'll go mine. It's best that we do. Here's a kiss, I hope that this brings lots of luck to you. Makes no difference how I carry on. Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. You go your way, I'll go mine. It's best that we do. Here's a kiss, I hope that this brings lots of luck to you. Makes no difference how I carry on. Baby, please don't talk about me when I'm gone.
When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing